I've hated The Lion King from the moment I first saw it as a kid. I left the theater back then completely astounded by what Disney had done to their once flawless succession of films, and instantly predicted that this would be a phenomenal flop.
Wow, only a few seconds into the review and I can already tell I am not going to enjoy watching this. But since I love my viewers, I'll do this commentary anyway.
I mean, no one could actually like this film, right? What's there to like?
Well, if you want my honest opinion, here are a couple things to like about this movie. A likable and very well-developed protagonist with many layers to his personality, a great cast of supporting characters, fantastic animation, wonderful songs, and above all a great story that deals with coming-of-age responsibilities, as well as some of William Shakespeare's Hamlet. But that's just what I like about it. If anyone agrees, feel free to let me know.
Suffice it to say, I was completely wrong. The film was a huge hit, and even has a tremendous fan base even to this day. I've never been so dumbfounded by a bad movie's success in all of my life, not even after Star Trek Generations.
Okay, two things. First of all, a lot of bad movies have made money. Here are some examples. This shouldn't be a big surprise. Secondly, and this is most important, a big reason for why this movie was successful was because other people thought it was a good movie, and they enjoyed it. Maybe next time you should consider that and not expect everybody to agree with you.
This film does not deserve any of the success or accolades it's received. It deserves to be completely ignored. Moreover, it should be ignored, because when you make a shitty film popular, you give writers and studio executives the impression that you want to see shitty films, and they're usually more than happy to deliver on this. So with this review, I am going to demonstrate just how awful this film truly was. I will demonstrate that, with the possible exception of the animation, the film has no redeeming quality at all. It is, in fact, horrible.
In your opinion, that is. To other people, this film has hundreds of redeeming qualities. Oh, and before we continue, remember what he just said, because confused Matthew is going to contradict himself quite a few times in this review. I will be sure to point out his contradictions.
And maybe, just maybe, I can prevent another film like this from ever being produced, and we can all live in a world where only good movies become successful. Maybe I'm just setting my sights too high, but I can dream, damn it. I can dream. So the film opens to the one and only good song in it. We see the majesty and wonder of Pride Rock, where a new prince is being born. I loved this opening scene and was expecting something great when it was over.
You see right there? This was his first of many contradictions. Matthew previously said that the only thing good in this movie was the animation, and yet he just praised the Circle of Life opening number.
Boy, was I in for a shock. It's here that we see little Simba, noble young prince who will one day become king of this majestic land. Aw, isn't he cute? The opening scene closes, we learn that Scar is pissed off about the kid's birth, and then we jump a ways in time to when Simba is a little kid. It's here that we really meet Simba for the first time, and... well, let me give you a quick synopsis of how we're introduced to this character. Come on, Dad, let's go do what I want to do. No, Dad, you're sleeping. That's not what I want to do. Get up and let's go do what I want to do. I want to do it now. Now, 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 now. Come on, get up, get up, get up, get up, and let's go do what I want to do right now.
Okay, I have just noticed many problems here. First of all, Simba is not a spoiled brat, and he does not behave like that. Secondly, since I have seen this movie, I know that Simba was just very excited that day because his father, Mufasa, was going to show him the kingdom, and he was just really anxious to go see the kingdom. Haven't you ever been excited like that before? Thirdly, and most importantly, Simba's a child. Don't start calling Simba a jerk just because he's an excitable little kid, because there are tons of children who behave like that, alright? Now, let's see how else you're going to badmouth this movie.
As soon as I saw this scene, I was sure I had this film pegged. I know exactly what this film is going to be about, I thought. It's going to turn out that Mufasa has two sons. One is this little shitbag, and the other is going to be a kind, noble character who cares about someone other than himself, wants to rule this kingdom well, and he's going to have to do everything he can to make sure this little shit never gets his paws on power. Sadly, however, that good and noble character never shows up in this film, and when I realized that he was never going to show up, it was quite a rude awakening indeed. Oh my god, we're actually supposed to like this little shit? This is the first and probably biggest problem in this whole film. Simba, our supposed hero and protagonist, is an asshole.
No, he isn't. If you actually have paid attention to his character, he's actually very relatable and has many good qualities to his personality. He's brave, he's strong, he's a good listener, he's friendly, he's laid back, and later on he also becomes very responsible and does what he has to do to save his kingdom. Tell me, are those bad traits?
I mean, he doesn't listen to anyone, he's not very nice.
Not true.
He treats everyone around him like shit.
You're incorrect on 2 accounts.
And he only cares about himself.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
Dude, I think you really need to pay more attention to his character before you start making these assumptions, because it sounds to me like you're talking about a completely different character. Alright?
When I'm king, I'm gonna do everything my way. This place is gonna be dedicated to loving me and doing what I want to do. And if you don't like it, then you're fired, you dickface.
It's Mr. Banana Beat to you, Fuzzy.
When I think of the heroes in the last 3 Disney films, I can see that they all have something in common. They were all genuinely good people who had lots of hopes and dreams, and they cared about the people in their lives.
Okay, you are incorrect on quite a few things here. Firstly, you use Ariel from The Little Mermaid as one of your examples. If I'm correct, she selfishly wanted to go on land. She defied her father's orders, and she only thought about herself and not the others around her. Those aren't very good traits. Then you use Aladdin, who isn't too much different. I mean, he's a thief who steals things for his own survival. Granted, yes, he is a good person, and he does at times think of others, but stealing is still a crime. Now, the only person that does match what you're saying is Belle from Beauty and the Beast. So for next time, I suggest you think of better examples, like Belle, before you make a claim like this.
The only Disney character that I can liken Simba to is Gaston.
Here in town is only she, who is beautiful as me.
But for a more contemporary, non-Disney example, I'll tell you the one character who instantly reminded me of Simba, Draco Malfoy of the Harry Potter series. In fact, aside from the differences in species, Simba and Draco are exactly the same character. I'm better than you are, Potter. When I grow up, I'm going to rule all of Hogwarts. Don't you know who my father is? Now there's a hero I can get behind.
Last I checked, Draco Malfoy was evil, and how you describe him is quite accurate. Simba, however, is not evil, and how you describe him is not accurate at all.
Are you somewhat evil? Because if you are, then I must warn you. I stop evil all the time.
You know what? He could be Shadvik. I mean, he has a good understanding of evil characters and a poor understanding of good ones. If he is, I give you my permission to put an end to his reviews. But anyway, let's move on.
I spent the first third of this film just being really confused. I didn't know why I was supposed to like Simba. I didn't know why I was supposed to care about Simba. I only had one consistent thought through the entire first act of this film. Someone needs to eat this thing. So as I said, we're introduced to Simba by way of him rudely waking both his parents up out of a nice rest, and even headbutting his own father in the face. Instead of beating his ass for this and going back to sleep like they rightly should have, his father obliges him and takes him on a tour of the kingdom. He begins instructing his son on some very important moral lessons, but because Simba's an asshole, he's not really paying that much attention.
Now that is just an outright lie. Simba was paying very good attention to Mufasa. In fact, I'll prove it.
Everything you see exists together in a delicate balance. As king, you need to understand that balance and respect all the creatures, from the crawling ant to the leaping antelope.
But Dad, don't we eat the antelope?
Yes, Simba, but let me explain. When we die, our bodies become the grass, and the antelope eat the grass. And so, we are all connected in the great circle of life. What are you doing, son?
Pouncing.
Let an old pro show you how it's done.
I told the elephants to forget it, but they can't.
Zazu, would you turn around?
Yes, sire. The cheetahs are hard up,
Stay
but
low
I
to
always
the
say
ground.
cheetahs never prosper.
Okay, stay low to the ground, right, yeah.
What's going on?
A pouncing lesson.
Oh, very good. Pouncing. Pouncing? Oh, no, sire, you can't be serious. Oh, this is so humiliating.
Try not to make a sound.
What are you telling him, Mufasa? Mufasa? Simba?
Tell me, viewers, was Simba paying attention? He was? Good. Now let's keep going.
In fact, the only thing that really gets his attention is when he learns that there will be more to being king than just getting his way all the time. Not if Simba has anything to say about it. Another thing that gets his attention is when Mufasa tells him he must never go to a certain place in the kingdom. Simba talks to his uncle about this, who lets it slip that this place is an elephant graveyard, and also tells Simba not to go there. Naturally, because he's an asshole, he defies both of his elders and decides to go anyway.
Which is exactly what Scar wanted. Previously you said that Scar told him not to go. Well, if you actually paid attention to that scene, he was using reverse psychology to trick Simba into going to the elephant graveyard by making him extremely curious about the place. After all, Scar is the villain, and he wants Simba to get hurt. If you were evil, which you probably are, you would do the same thing as well.
But because he's an asshole, he couldn't possibly do something obstinate and dangerous alone. Of course not. He has to drag a little friend along with him. So he goes to find Nala, and also finds his mom there, who decides to give him a bath. Mom, you're messing up my mane. I'll mess your face up, you little shit.
Gee, and I thought I was being immature with that whole evil comment earlier, but I guess that just tops it.
Anyway, when she asks where they're both going, Simba lies to his own mother's face and tells her that they're going to the waterhole. You know, because he's an asshole. Sarabi says it's fine as long as Zazu goes with them to chaperone. And Simba appears to be resentful of this. I don't really know why. After all, this is a golden opportunity for him to treat someone else in his life like shit. So they get pretty close to the waterhole, and, oh god, I just love this. They actually dedicate an entire song to talking about how much of an asshole this kid is. You guys suck and I am great, me, 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 me. You guys suck and I am great, it's all about me. Heartwarming.
Okay, that's not what the song is about at all. First of all, it was just to show us how excited Simba is to be the king, and at no point does he talk down to any of the other animals at the waterhole. Secondly, that song was also supposed to distract Zazu so that Simba and Nala could sneak off to the elephant graveyard. Weren't you paying attention to what happened before this scene?
So Simba disrespects and humiliates Zazu and leaves him for dead in the underside of a rhino, which brings the tally of elders he's disrespected and disobeyed to 4. This is our hero, ladies and gentlemen. This is our hero. So they get to the elephant graveyard, Zazu catches up with them, and they learn that this is actually hyena territory. And oh my god, he's even a little asshole in foreign lands. I'm the future king! You can't do anything to me!
You know, you keep gabbling on about how much of an inconsiderate jerk Simba is, when it's this part of the film where we learn how he actually does put others before himself. It's this part where he tries to help Zazu and Nala. In fact, let me show you.
Major Domo bird hippity hopped all the way to the birdie boiler. Oh no, not the birdie boiler!
Hey, why don't you pick on somebody your own size?
Like you?
Oops. Simba!
Tell me, would you guys call that inconsiderate? I wouldn't.
Oh, come on, guys. Eat him. Eat him. Eat him and spit his bones out and make him into a toilet and shit on his dead carcass every... Oh, damn it, he got away. Turns out Mufasa actually cares about this little shit for some reason and decided to save his life.
Dude, you do know that Mufasa is Simba's father, right? Fathers care about their children. If I had kids, I would care for them and protect them, no matter what their personalities are. You should think about that for next time.
So now he's going to teach his son a lesson. So now the first act of the film is very nearly coming to a close. What's happened in the film so far? Well, Simba has bathed in his own ego, treated everyone in his life like a sack of shit, including his own two parents, almost caused an international incident, and very nearly got 2 innocent people killed. If there are any Lion King fans watching this review, please, help me out here. Why are we supposed to like this little shit? A lot of people who have heard this complaint from me have given the same defense. Simba is just a little kid. Little kids are rambunctious and rebellious.
And I have to agree, that is a good and legitimate reason.
Well, I was a little kid once, and I was rebellious and rambunctious. But I was never this much of an obstinate, willful, selfish, dishonest, disobedient little asshole. And I didn't know any other little kid that was either.
God.
Simba's behavior and personality go way beyond simple rambunctiousness of youth. Simba's the kind of kid you see drill sergeants yelling out on the Maury Povich show.
That's the end of the first part. Now, I've decided to keep on going, and thus, I've decided to remove every introduction to each part. So now this is part 2.
So when we last met our hero Simba, he had caused every problem in what would otherwise have been a peaceful kingdom, and his father was about to chastise him for it. Now, I'm not a big fan of the gratuitous compliment, but it seems I must give one here. I didn't hate this scene. It is in fact the only scene in the film that made me neither ill nor annoyed.
Dude, this is the second time you contradicted yourself. I haven't forgotten what you previously said, that the animation is the only redeeming quality in this movie. This is the second positive thing you've said. I think if you are ever going to revise this review, at least go back in the script and change what you previously said so that you don't contradict yourself and make yourself look unprofessional.
That's a gratuitous compliment because it did make me very confused. I didn't understand these two characters at all after this scene. I mean, if Simba loves and respects his father this much, why doesn't he ever listen to him? And if Mufasa is this good a parent and teacher, then how did Simba turn out to be such a little asshole in the first place?
Okay, I can answer both of those questions. First of all, he does listen to his father, and I previously proved it a while ago. The only reason he disobeyed him was because Scar tricked him into going to the elephant graveyard. Secondly, you're misunderstanding Simba's character again. I could go on about how Simba is not in any way like how you describe him, but I would end up repeating myself. Instead, I just want to continue with this commentary and get it over with.
So after these two have a little bonding time, we then cut to a scene where the hyenas are upset about not killing the kid. This scene then rolls into the most pointless villain song I've ever heard in my life. The only thing we learn in this song is that Scar is using the hyenas to try to take over the Pride Lands. We know. That's what he just tried to do.
Okay, you are absolutely wrong about Be Prepared. The song is not pointless, and the reason it's not pointless is because there is very important plot exposition within the song. In fact, I'll prove it.
Yeah, be prepared. Yeah, we'll be prepared. For what?
For the death of the king.
Why, is he sick?
No, fool, we're gonna kill him. And Simba, too.
Great idea! Who needs a king? No king, no king, la 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 la.
Idiots! There will be a king.
Hey, but you said,
I will be king. Stick with me, and you'll never go hungry again.
Long live the king!
If it weren't for this song, we wouldn't know that Scar plans to kill Mufasa. Honestly, you need to pay attention.
So after this gratuitous scene, we then see Scar taking Simba to a rock in the middle of nowhere. Now to keep this brief, I'll just sum this up for you. Hyenas cause stampede, Simba gets caught up, father saves his life, Scar kills father, Simba very sad. This is in fact supposed to be one of the saddest moments in cinematic history.
It is. I tell you, every child that saw this part was crying their eyes out. Though something tells me that you didn't shed a tear, since you're so biased against this movie, and that yet you can't feel any emotion. Let's find out.
But I just didn't see it that way. I mean, it's a little kid who just lost a parent. That has a default setting of being generally sad. But since we don't like Simba, and we didn't know Mufasa very well, it's just really hard to care about this in any way except just generally.
Wow, you really are heartless. What you just said was really cruel. I mean, Simba just lost his father. How can you not feel sorry for a child who lost his father? I know it's probably because you don't like him, but even if someone I didn't like lost someone near and dear to them, I would still show sympathy for that person and try to help them through their grieving. You should be ashamed of yourself, Matthew.
What follows this is the most underexplained moment in the entire film, and that's a big deal because it's also one of the most crucial points in the film. What in all fucking hell makes Simba think that this is his fault? It's not like he caused the stampede, and the only thing Scar says to him is, "The king is dead, and if it weren't for you, he'd still be alive." This implies that this is supposed to be Simba's fault because he was there and needed rescue. But the only reason he was there is because Scar put him there. Simba even offered to go with Scar to get his dad. Scar said no, just stay on this rock and practice your little roar. Even a grieving 8-year-old idiot should be able to figure out that, even by the logic of what was just said to him, this is Scar's fault. There is just no way to turn this around and make it out to be Simba's fault, and Simba has no reason to think it is his fault. The motivations Simba has for thinking that he was responsible for his dad's death aren't even bad. They barely even exist. If you're going to give us a character later on who spends many of his adult years blaming himself for his father's death, you've got to give us a better motivation than, "I believe it's so because I was there." This scene is the textbook definition of contrived.
Okay, I can refute some of those claims. First of all, Simba has at least one good reason as to why he blames himself. Basically, he thinks that when he roared at a lizard, his roar caused the stampede. Secondly, I must remind you that just because Scar left him in that place, that doesn't mean it's his fault. Now, if Simba did see Scar start the stampede, or even kill Mufasa, then Simba would be able to rightfully blame Scar. Lastly, and most importantly, Simba just lost his father. Do you honestly think that any child who witnessed their parents' death is going to think straight? I don't think so. No, I think any normal child would be grieving over their dead parent and wouldn't stop to think logically about the situation. Furthermore, children tend to blame themselves whenever something tragic happens. So it's perfectly normal for Simba to blame himself. Honestly, do you know anything about being a child? You claim that you were once a child, but I beg to differ. Now let's move on.
So anyway, Scar manages to dupe Simba, and then he exiles him from the kingdom. This is the only action taken in the film that can be interpreted in any way as good.
That's another contradiction from you. Goodness. These contradictions are giving me a migraine headache.
Based on what we learned about Simba and how he planned to run this place, Scar probably just did the people of Pride Rock the biggest favor of their lives.
No! You should know that he made everything worse once he exiles Simba. Plus, I'm really getting annoyed with you misinterpreting Simba's character, because you're wrong on many things here.
So Scar goes back and tells the people that both Mufasa and Simba have been killed in the stampede, and since everyone in this film is either evil or a complete idiot, they all just take his word for it. Meanwhile, we find Simba roasting in the sun, and then we are introduced to Timon and Pumbaa. And here, I have to give credit where credit is due. Because as far as Disney villains go, these are two of the most evil, nasty, despicable, despisable Disney villains I've ever seen on screen. I mean, they make the Wicked Queen look like mother freaking to— Wait a minute! These are supposed to be good guys too? What is it that makes these writers think that horrible people make for good protagonists?
Now, before I start ranting on how Timon and Pumbaa are not evil and are actually good characters, let me list a few absolutely despicable characters in other movies who are the protagonists. All of these characters that I have listed are very evil characters, and yet we are supposed to root for them. Haven't you ever heard of the term anti-hero? Though granted, Timon and Pumbaa aren't anti-heroes, and I'll explain later why, but the term still is a real one that you should be more familiar with.
First of all, they mince no words about the fact that the only reason they're helping this poor kid out is so that they can use him. And this never changes through the course of the film. When Simba is an adult lion and saves them from another adult lion, Timon greedily whispers in Pumbaa's ear, "See, I told you he'd come in handy." Boy, what valiant, noble heroes we have in this film.
Okay, now I think you're really not paying attention to this movie, because you are mostly incorrect. Again. While it is true that they do want someone to protect them from danger, the real reason they're helping Simba is because both of them are actually very kind-hearted characters that want to help others, and they felt sorry for Simba after they found him in the desert. Tell me, does that sound evil to you guys? Secondly, I personally think that what they did for Simba was a very selfless and heroic deed. I mean, they take care of him, they nurse him back to health, they share their food with him, even if it is bugs, they share their jungle home with him, and they even become his friends, especially at that time because he really needed friends. Tell me, who here thinks that what Timon and Pumbaa did was a noble thing indeed? If you do think so, feel free to leave a comment. Anyway, let's see how else you're going to mess up this review.
Second of all, Timon and Pumbaa are just horrible people. They're lazy and proud of it, stupid and proud of it, selfish and proud of it, and what's more, they're assholes.
Please refer to what I said earlier about Timon and Pumbaa, because a lot of what I said can counterpoint what you just said.
We have a scene where Simba is telling them what he thinks of the origin of the stars, and they both just laugh at him like he's a piece of shit for even opening his mouth about the subject. These are our heroes, folks. These are our heroes.
Okay, the real reason why they are laughing at that was because they come from a different place and have never heard that story before. Thus, they thought it was funny. They weren't trying to be mean at all. They just didn't understand where Simba was coming from. Do you get what I'm saying here?
Third of all, they actually do something to this kid that's just as bad, if not worse, than what Scar did to him when he told him to run away. They convince him that if you've got problems, sweep them under the rug. You've got responsibilities? Shirk them. Ignore everything in your life and live like a lazy, stupid, selfish, greedy little bastard like we do. Turn your back on the world, they teach this kid. And they sum this horrible moral philosophy up in 2 words, Hakuna Matata, which loosely translated means, fuck it. And this awful moral philosophy, which no one should ever follow in their lives, is translated into an easy-to-remember children's song.
Hakuna Matata, what a wonderful phrase.
Yeah, what a wonderful phrase.
Okay, you're wrong once again. The whole point of Hakuna Matata was to try and cheer Simba up, and to teach him not to worry so much, and just to be optimistic and enjoy your life. Is that really such a bad thing?
Let me ask you a question, Lion King fans. If the only salvageable point to this film is that you shouldn't shirk your responsibilities and shouldn't sweep your problems under the rug, why does Hakuna Matata get its own song? Why is Hakuna Matata portrayed in a positive light in that song?
Because it's a catchy phrase, and because the song does have a good message about being optimistic and not to let your worries overwhelm you. That's why it gets its own song.
Hakuna Matata, even by this own film's admission, is a bad thing. And these two are lazy, evil, greedy, selfish little vermin larvae who are actually guilty of corrupting a small child. And we're supposed to like them. And the only thing more unnerving than what has just been said is that people actually did like them.
You know, I find it funny how you were earlier bashing Simba for his personality, and yet now you're bashing Timon and Pumbaa for what they're doing to Simba's personality. I'm surprised you're not praising these characters for ultimately changing the personality of a character you don't like. I mean, what gives? But then again, you are a confused person, and I'd like to get this review done as soon as possible.
Now, for my part, I spent most of this film totally unaware that these were even supposed to be good guys. I thought they were going for something like the truants in Pinocchio. You know, the ones who convinced him that smoking and drinking were good things and almost got him turned into an ass.
Yeah, but none of those characters tried to help Pinocchio by giving him food, shelter, and good friends. Timon and Pumbaa, on the other hand, did give Simba those things.
Anyway, so these three begin a long and unhealthy friendship, beginning what I like to fondly refer to as the Fellowship of the Three Assholes. So then Simba grows up, and then we see that Wait. He grows up? And what's more, you give him all the personality of tepid pudding?
Do I really need to go back and describe Simba's personality to you again? Look, all I will say is that at this point in the movie, Simba is much more laid back than he was before. Now let's keep watching to see how much you ruin this character for a second time.
You establish this kid as a little asshole and then turn him into a vegetable without any justification for the move? It's not like he became this way because he realized he was an asshole and that was a bad thing. He is the way he is because someone put him in the wrong place at the wrong time. He didn't grow. He didn't change. He just rebooted. This character is the way he is for reasons totally unrelated to this character. If this character was going to be completely irrelevant to the last 2/3 of this film, why did we even need to watch the first third? Why didn't you just start the film right here?
Sheesh, you need to calm down, man. Also, I thought you said that it was Timon and Pumbaa, and their Hakuna Matata that caused Simba to change. So basically, to answer a question that you should have answered yourself, it was Hakuna Matata that made Simba change into what he is now. Duh.
Sorry about that. I really hate this film.
Gee, I couldn't tell. Sarcasm.
Meanwhile, back at Pride Rock, Scar is laying around with nothing to do. Meanwhile, back with Simba and his two supposed friends, they're laying around with nothing to do. Isn't this a pretty picture? We've got both the protagonist and the antagonist laying around, not doing anything. Oh, and am I upset at the fact that Scar is running this place badly? No, not really, because I'm not entirely convinced that Simba would have run this place any differently. We have a scene later on where people are telling Scar that he's condemned them to death and that he can't do that, and Scar responds, "I'm the king, I can do whatever I want." Gee, whose mouth could that just as easily have come out of?
Isn't that cute? But it's wrong!
So it's 6-1, half a dozen to the other for me. Anyway, Simba lays his ass down in a field of grass because he's got nothing better to do in this film, and the grass travels to a monkey who throws it in a turtle shell, and from this, he learns not only that Simba is alive, but also exactly where he is and how to get there. That is one magic turtle shell.
You do realize that Rafiki is a shaman, right? He's supposed to know this kind of magic. He's pretty much the monkey equivalent of Tiresias or Merlin. In other words, he is the wise old wizard. Did what I just explained make sense to you?
Okay, so how long has this movie been on? A little over a half hour, 45 minutes. Okay, you know what? There you go, Simba. There's a girlfriend. It's a love story now. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Unlike Aladdin and Jasmine, who fell in love because, although they were both on opposite sides of the social field, they could relate to each other about feeling trapped in their lives, or like Belle, who fell in love with the Beast because she saw the inner good in him, which made him see the inner good in himself and fall in love with her, Simba and Nala fall in love because they've had 3 seconds of screen time together. Because who wants to see a story about someone having to get the girl when you can just drop one on him?
You do remember that Simba and Nala were best friends prior to this, right? Obviously, because they have a lot in common, and yet they're different enough, they could easily fall in love, and it would make perfect sense. By the way, there's one more part now. So let's do this.
So when we last met our hero Simba, he had fallen in love with Nala so fast it mirrors spontaneous combustion. I mean, honestly, these two share maybe 3 sentences together. Most of it is just recapping what's happened in the last few years, and the only thing they have in common is that they both have no personality. Now this is The Lion King, so something this forced, rushed, and artificial is of course deserving of its own song. No, I can't.
Ugh. Do I really have to go back and explain a previous point to you? I am very annoyed with how you constantly forget certain details within the movie, so much so, I might just stop this commentary altogether. But then again, this is the last part, and I've made it this far, so let's move on.
So Simba has found the love of his life, and in record time, no less. Are Timon and Pumbaa happy for their friend? Of course not. They're assholes. The only thing they care about is the fact that they're losing the once exclusive rights they had to their lion.
No, I think you mean their friend. Besides, they do eventually join Simba in his fight to save his kingdom later on. I mean, don't you remember that?
Now, as far as characters go, Nala's character sort of reminded me of the character Lily in Star Trek First Contact, in that I'm not even sure what she's doing in this film. She doesn't add or contribute anything to it.
Yes she does. First of all, she acts as Simba's best friend from childhood. Secondly, she informs Simba about what has happened while he was gone. Thirdly, she helps Simba save his kingdom by rallying up the other lionesses and fighting the hyenas. Tell me, viewers, are those good purposes?
I mean, is she here to make this a love story? No, that never happens. They fall in love automatically. It's neither deserved nor earned. Is she here to convince Simba that he needs to go back and take his place as king? No, that's what the monkey does. Yeah, I don't know what she's for. So after falling in love in a mere 3 seconds, Simba and Nala then have their first fight 3 seconds later. This is like watching a 6-month relationship on fast forward. What happened to us, Nala? Why can't we go back to the way things used to be 6 seconds ago? So Simba goes off to pout by himself for a while, and then we're introduced to the character Rafiki, who barely qualifies as a character as far as I'm concerned. I said this after I saw the movie for the first time, and I think it's true even to today. You could just skip Rafiki's part and go right to Simba seeing his dad in the clouds, and it would be exactly the same. I mean, what's the point of introducing this character so late in the film?
Okay, I found more problems here. First of all, Rafiki is introduced at the very beginning of the movie. Don't you remember his part in the Circle of Life number? No? Well, let me show you some of it. Secondly, Rafiki constantly makes appearances throughout the first act of the film, as we see him observe Simba and how he grows. Thirdly, and you even said this yourself, he's the one who discovers that Simba was alive the whole time. Lastly, he's the one who teaches Simba that his father lives within him, as well as the fact that he can learn from his past. Tell me, does all of that sound pointless to you? Anyway, let's move on.
This is the first time this character has ever verbally interacted with any other character in the whole film. And as if that wasn't odd enough, it's also the last time he will do so. We're never going to know anything about this person as a character, and we're never going to know anything about the relationship he had with Mufasa or anyone else. I don't know that I've ever seen another film that's ever done something like this. How odd is it that one tiny scene at the end of a film counts both as a character's entrance to the film and as his exit?
Okay, two things. First of all, Rafiki does later on interact verbally with Simba and other characters later in the film, as well as appear later on to help Simba fight for his kingdom and show him to the throne. In fact, if you don't believe me, let's see him fight for Simba's kingdom. Secondly, you bring up how you've never seen a character enter and exit a film in one scene. Well, have you ever seen the movie Pulp Fiction? In that movie, Christopher Walken plays a character who only appears in one scene of the film, and yet he leaves a very strong impact on one of the characters. In fact, here's a little clip from his scene.
This watch was on your daddy's wrist when he was shot down over Hanoi. He was captured, put in a Vietnamese prison camp. He knew that if the gooks ever saw the watch, it'd be confiscated, taken away. The way your dad looked at it, this watch was your birthright. You'd be damned if any slope's gonna put the greasy yellow hands on his boy's birthright, so he hid it. In one place he knew he could hide something, his ass. 5 long years he wore this watch, up his ass. Then he died of dysentery. Give me the watch. I hid this uncomfortable hunk of metal up my ass 2 years. Then, after 7 years, I was sent home to my family. Now, little man, I give the watch to you.
So basically, that whole thing you just said does not always apply. You should remember that.
So Rafiki lays some nonsensical gobbledygook on Simba and tells him that his father is still alive inside of him. It's kind of a creepy thought. And then, of course, we have the famous scene where Simba sees his father in the clouds. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm holding this film to some kind of an adult standard. I thought this as a kid. Why is Mufasa only appearing to Simba now? Why didn't he appear to him, oh, I don't know, when these two assholes were corrupting his kid?
In Mufasa's defense, I believed he only had appeared to Simba at that time because A, he was an adult at this point and old enough to take his place, and B, it's at this point when he is finally willing to accept his responsibility as well as learn that Mufasa lives within him. But that's just me.
What was keeping him? Were he and the great kings of the past partying up there and just lost track of the time? This is a children's film, so you don't have to be 100% on the logic everywhere, but when you keep on laying all of these inexplicable scenes and motivations on us, it just gets really insulting after a while. I really felt like the writers were basically saying this to me at this point. You're kids. We know how stupid you are. You'll watch anything. Just shut up and go with it.
Hey, this movie does not insult children's intelligence. This movie is a very smart film that does not talk down to kids at all. I know this. I've seen this movie many times. Now, if you really want a movie that's insulting to one's intelligence, I suggest you either watch A Troll in Central Park or The Pebble and the Penguin. Now, those movies were insulting. But let's continue, because I really don't want to think about either of those movies. Ugh.
And what makes this worse is that Mufasa doesn't even say anything useful or applicable to the situation to Simba. He says, remember who you are. Well, who's that? The asshole or the cucumber? Because I don't think that either one of those are good for this situation. How about this? Instead of remember who you are, learn who you are.
You do realize he says a lot more than just that, right? He tells him that he is the one true king, and that he must take his place in the circle of life. Honestly, did you not pay attention to this movie?
So after seeing an apparition in the clouds and getting hit on the head by a monkey with a stick, Simba finally gets off his ass and does something. And away he goes. He ends up back at Pride Rock, and then discovers that a few people have come to help him. One of these people is the useless cardboard cutout Nala, and the other two are Timon and Pumbaa, even though nothing that we've seen or heard from them in this film justifies this decision. They never had an epiphany where they learned Hakuna Matata was bad. They never learned not to be stupid and lazy and selfish. They never even had a moment where they apologized to Simba for emotionally grounding him in the dirt this whole time, and maybe using that as a justification for being here. There is nothing in this film that justifies these two being here to help. They're here because they're main characters.
I disagree. I think they're there because they know Simba is their friend, and that friends help each other out when they need it. I personally think that's a good reason for them to be there, along with the fact that they are both likable characters. Now, Matthew, let me ask you this. If your friend needed your help with something, would you help them, or would you just leave them be? Anyway, with that point, I will now move on.
Now, I feel dirty just giving this film any credit at all, but I would also be very dishonest if I didn't give it the one genuine compliment it deserves. This was funny. I laughed at this hard.
Oh boy, another contradiction. I'm surprised I didn't start a drinking game for every time he contradicts his original statement. But then again, I don't drink alcohol.
So Simba finally faces Scar, and all the lions in the kingdom realize that Simba is in fact alive. You know, Scar told you guys that both Mufasa and Simba were killed in the stampede, and seeing Simba alive here kinda seems to contradict that story. Does anyone feel like bringing that up?
Well, you know, Scar had no idea that Simba was alive either. He thought his 3 hyena minions killed him right after the stampede.
Anyone? No? Okay. So Simba and Scar have a little back and forth, and then finally Scar pulls the "Admit it, Simba, you're responsible for Mufasa's death" routine. You know, Scar told you guys that both Mufasa and Simba were killed in a stampede, and now he's trying to turn it around and say that Simba was responsible, which really contradicts his original story.
How? How does it? Scar could have easily said, Simba accidentally caused a stampede, and he and Mufasa were trampled to death by all of those blasted wildebeest. The point is, even if someone caused something, they could have easily been affected by what they caused. Does that make any sense to you?
Does anyone want to bring that up? Anyone? No. In fact, what does Simba's mom say to him when she hears this?
It's not true. Tell me it's not true.
Okay, come on. This is stupid. Not one of these lions is even remotely curious as to how a 2-pound cub could have possibly been responsible for the death of a 600-pound lion. They're not even gonna ask?
That's not important. The point is, Simba thinks he's responsible, and things like that don't matter when someone's admitting to something they did. Plus, everyone is too shocked at that moment to think straight. Have you ever considered that?
Of course not, because if they did ask, the writers would have to immediately concede that the motivations Simba has for thinking he's responsible for his father's death don't exist. Here's how this conversation would have played out if logic were applied. Admit it, Simba, you're responsible for Mufasa's death. Wait, what do you mean he's responsible? You told us Mufasa was killed in a stampede. Oh, he was. So why are you now saying that Simba's responsible? Well, he was on this rock, you see, and what was he doing on a rock? Yeah, and how do you know he was on a rock? Well, I sort of told him to stay there. Oh, so this is your fault. Hey, you know, now that you mention it, Scar did smack me across the world when I said I was going for help, and yet somehow I never put the pieces together on that. But now that you mention it, yeah, this is Scar's fault. Okay, come on, guys, let's get at him.
Okay, first of all, why are you trying to put logic in a movie about talking lions reenacting Hamlet, but with a happy ending? Secondly, you do realize that Zazu wasn't in that scene, right? He was being wrongfully imprisoned by Scar, and he wouldn't be freed until Timon and Pumbaa came in and saved him. In fact, here, I'll show a little bit of that.
Let me out! Let me out! Let me in! Please don't eat me.
Hey, who's the pig? Are you talking to me?
Uh-oh, they call him a pig.
Are you talking to me?
Shouldn't have done that.
Are you talking to me?
Now they're in for it.
They call me Mr. Pig!
Got you, stupid! Take that! And that!
But anyway, let's move on. We're almost done.
But since everyone in this film is either evil or a complete idiot, they all just take his word for it. So Simba is backed over a cliff without a foothold, and I guess Zeus is against him too, because a bolt of lightning happens to strike under him and starts a fire. Then, for absolutely no reason, Scar tells Simba the obvious, that he was responsible for Mufasa's death.
The reason he said what he said was because he thought that he was going to kill Simba at that moment, and that there was no escape. But boy, was he wrong.
This gives Simba the ability to fly, and he lands on top of Scar. Then he has Scar tell everyone else what they should have figured out by virtue of the fact that Simba's not dead. So in fact, the only thing Simba actually learns in this film is that he wasn't actually responsible for his father's death, which he should have figured out years ago.
Oh, and the whole thing on accepting responsibility, as well as Hakuna Matata. But I guess that's not important. Who am I kidding? He learns a lot more than that, you ignorant excuse of a movie critic. Sorry about that.
But this is The Lion King, so now the writers are going to wrap this thing up, not with any kind of moral or lesson, but with violence.
You claim how they didn't try to solve everything in a calm manner, when that is just not true in the slightest. Simba was going to let Scar live. In fact, let me prove it to you.
Murderer. Simba, Simba, please. Please have mercy, I beg you.
You don't deserve to live.
But, Simba, I am family. It's the hyenas who are the real enemy. It was their fault. It was their idea.
Why should I believe you? Everything you ever told me was a lie.
What are you going to do? You wouldn't kill your old uncle.
No, Scar. I'm not like you.
Oh, Simba, thank you. You are truly noble. I'll make it up to you, I promise. How can I prove myself to you? Tell me, anything.
Run. Run away, Scar. And never return.
Yes, of course.
The only reason they fought was because Scar turned on Simba and tried to kill him. You know, like this.
As you wish, Your Majesty.
So basically, everything would have been solved more calmly if Scar hadn't been such a ruthless killer. You get what I'm saying?
So they fight. Then finally, the hyenas take care of Scar for everyone, and then disappear into nowhere, I guess. Simba takes his place as king, and then all's right in Pride Rock. No one learns anything, no one experiences anything, and wait a minute, what the hell are those two doing cheering up there? They didn't do anything. They're partially responsible for what happened to Pride Rock, since they're the ones who were holding Simba back this whole time.
You know, I am not going to repeat myself. It's your fault for not paying attention to what I said earlier, so you don't deserve to know why they're up there. Anyway, we're almost done, folks. Let's finish this.
You know what? Fuck this. Take them out of there. That's better. So what's the moral of this story? Well, it turns out there are actually two. One, anyone who tells you to turn your back on the world is your friend, and two, don't turn your back on the past, because it's very possible that someone was just taking advantage of your stupidity the whole time. The end.